This is an audio sample of That Old Man Is Dead by Delvonne Duncombe, from the Courageous Overcomers anthology. I grew up on the island of New Providence in the beautiful Bahamas. My father's parents were descendants of Andros and Eleuthera, and my mother's parents were descendants of New Providence Island. Daddy was the oldest of 18 children, and I was the oldest of all the grandchildren. Being the oldest grandchild, I grew up with my father's youngest siblings and often was treated as one of my grandmother's children. I remember the days when she would cook and have the bowls lined off on the counter from oldest to youngest. The funny thing with that was the older you were, the more food you got, especially meat. Being the youngest meant that I hardly got meat and would often have to eat from my grandmother's plate, who we affectionately called Ma. Ma and Dad's house. Those days were great. They were days when manners and respect were the cornerstones of training in the home. My grandparents, Ma and Dad, lived on the corner of Market Street and Andros Avenue. I spent many days, nights, and summers there. My grandparents guided me throughout my early childhood. Dad was a preacher and a well-known evangelist. His belief in God and his desire to achieve made him a stern disciplinarian and a model of excellence for his children. Ma was a praying woman. She never worked a job, yet with 18 children, she would always bellow her work was never done. I remember the summers we would spend at their home with our morning beginning with morning prees, as we would call it, a spoon of Buckley's and honey and a spoon of Vaseline. I never quite understood what that was for, but it was not up for discussion. Next, we would be sent out of the house and allowed to play in the yard with each other, our neighbors and friends from neighboring communities who would all come to the yard just for fun and frolic. This is where it all gets interesting. This is where my story begins and gets a little scary. It all started at the 5-bedroom single-story structure on Andros Avenue. Before I tell my story, let me say that I have forgiven all who hurt and took advantage of me as a child. I love them unconditionally and never once lashed out or acted indifferently toward them. As I look back and assess my past from a new and enlightened perspective, I now understand why I did some of the things I did in my youth. I also realize the importance of parents providing a healthy environment for their children where they can holistically express and be themselves. My parents provided that environment for me when I was home. My father and mother did their best to help me maximize my potential to become a successful young man. Their parenting method was authoritarian, which at the time gave me the structure and discipline I needed to navigate through life as an adolescent and later as a man. Daddy taught me many essential principles about life, one of which I would never forget. He often said, if you want to know, you should ask. If you want to be better, you should seek knowledge. I can still hear him today, Deli, knowledge will never find you, you must seek knowledge. Mummy was also a disciplinarian. She was small in stature but always taught me the value of manners and respect and how I should put God first in all that I do. Hearing all of this, one may wonder how something as heinous as molestation could happen to someone in such a home environment that my parents had. I have no answer to the how and why, only to say it happened to me. I think I was about 6 or 7 when it first happened. It was not until I was about 8 or 9 that I understood that something was wrong with what was happening with several aunts, and by the age of 10 and 11, I think I knew what was happening but did not have the courage to stop it or even speak out against it. This sexual abuse led to years of promiscuity as a child, a teenager, and even a young adult. I believe that because of the molestation, I had become desensitized to the dangers of premarital sex and engaged in many promiscuous acts. The age of innocence. I believe that adults are responsible for protecting, nurturing, and loving children under their care. At no time should anyone strip a child of their innocence. It epitomizes selfishness. Children are impressionable, and their minds fragile. Emotionally, they are delicate flowers that, under the sun's scorching heat, can wither and die for lack of shade. Imagine what it must feel like for a 6-year-old to be fondled consistently during baths, not understanding what is taking place or why what is happening. Now imagine a 7-year-old child being made to touch the private parts of someone they trust and who they have been given the responsibility to nurture and protect. Can you imagine how that child, whether a little boy, like myself at the time, or perhaps a little girl, which is also commonplace, feels when they are made to look upon the body of an older man or woman, not entirely understanding what is happening? At such a tender age, a child does not know the purpose of their bodies, they don't understand what they are looking at and being drawn into. The emotional fallout is tremendous, the fear and scars are lasting, and only the love of God could bring wholeness back to that individual's life. For some, wholeness never comes, they grow up to be broken individuals, never truly understanding who they are and always seeking to justify what happened. Well, I was one of those little boys fondled by caretakers. Worse than that, family members, aunts, who were supposed to ensure that I was safe. Instead, they violated me, took away my innocence. They caused me to always question who I was and why I was a candidate to have this physical and emotional pain inflicted upon me. At 6, I didn't know better. I could not be held to account. I thought it was all a game. After all, I did get a cup or a baggie afterward. As a child, I thought it had its benefits. After the treats, I believed it was okay. I was confused. This continued for about 2 years, and the confusion increased for 2 years. Why was I being made to do things that no little child my age should have to do? I kept silent because I was told it was our secret and I liked the treats, but I didn't understand the seriousness of the trade-off. I was innocent and unaware. Nobody told me what I was doing or what was being done to me was wrong. I was the victim of abuse both sexually and emotionally, and though disturbed, I was clueless that something should or could be done to stop it from continuing. This can't be right, I'm confused. At 8 years of age, I realized what had been happening to me just couldn't be right. I thought I liked girls. Will they let me touch them the way my aunt touches me? Is it okay if I ask them to come into a dark room with me so we can kiss? I was confused. Why did I get in trouble for lifting a girl's dress? My aunt lets me lift her dress and look at her undergarments. Why couldn't I take my private out and show it to another girl? It must be normal, she is of the opposite sex. I was confused. For me, the next couple of years were so confusing. I wanted to do to others what was being done to me, besides, it felt good in a weird way. I thought maybe I could do it with someone else, and they would enjoy it too. This has been an audio sample from Courageous Overcomers Anthology. For more information on how you can secure your copy of this book, contact Lieutenant Commander Delvonne Duncombe at delvond@yahoo.com or visit booksbybethel.com/courageous-overcomers.